Hey, good Thursday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here at WCNC and WCNC Plus. We are weather alert again tonight, though thankfully the coverage of the weather we're tracking tonight not nearly as widespread or as severe as we saw on Wednesday evening. But one area that is really active right now, and honestly is an area we have to watch pretty closely for flash flooding, is an area down in South Carolina. And the area I'm talking about is right there on your radar map. You can see southern Chester and Lancaster County. That is a lot of cloud to ground lightning like we saw yesterday. That looks like yesterday's radar, but instead of just being in that area, it was kind of all over the place. So tonight, I'm going to widen it out just to kind of put this in perspective. You could see it's much quieter to the north. We do have some flood warnings, but those are residual flood warnings from some of the rain that we had yesterday. But over the Piedmont, the northwest Piedmont, the Unifor region, into the foothills, it's pretty dry. Yesterday at this time, we were tracking a ton of storms. Brittany and I were pretty active in here, and it was crazy to see the amount of flood reports we got from Lincoln County and the lightning strikes. But one area that we did get a lot of flood reports from, and why we're kind of concerned this evening, even though it's isolated, is this area of southern Chester and Lancaster County. So let's zoom in on this area. So this area is from Richburg over towards Fort Lawn, down towards Great Falls. This area in particular got about 5-6 inches of rain last night. So to see these rainfall amounts over that same area is a little bit of concern. That Lancaster County, you can see Heath Springs area, we actually had a flood report down there. Many roads flooded out. And look at the cloud to ground strikes that we're seeing from lightning. Lightning was a big story yesterday. I had to go back and look. I think we had 27,000 lightning strikes in North Carolina in 24 hours. So huge day of lightning across the area. But this is the area last night. So I'm bringing up the rainfall from the last 48 hours because that's the area where it's pouring right now. Now, again, most of that fell last night and some of it now today. I'll put the 24-hour total on here to kind of put that in perspective. So let me remove the actual totals, and we'll put the 24-hour total, which will be just since midnight. So this will give you an idea of what's fallen just since midnight, and it kind of shows you that, yeah, on top of the rainfall from yesterday, a few spots are now seeing 1, 2, 3 inches of rain. So we have not seen any flood reports come out of this area yet, but it would not take much, in my opinion, to see the flood reports come in pretty quickly across this area. And I'm actually going to monitor the Columbia Forecast Office just to see if we get any reports in that area because of the amount of water that is falling currently there. Now, I want to widen this out a little bit just to show you that I'm a little more optimistic tonight that we will not be tracking storms into the wee hours of the overnight hours. Even though we were streaming basically till midnight last night or so, but 11:30 if you count the 11 o'clock news. Even after 1 o'clock in the morning, we saw storms across the area. So it was a long night tonight. I think when this batch moves through, we actually will see better weather tonight. And I'll widen this out even further because look to the northwest. Unlike last night when we had storms going all the way back into Tennessee and Kentucky, there's a lot fewer storms up there. And you're probably wondering, like, why is that the case? Well, one thing we can look at is that storm fuel. Even at night, you can have what we call CAPE. It's convectively available potential energy. CAPE. We love acronyms. One thing you'll know about meteorologists, we have an acronym for everything. And CAPE is just a fancy term for fuel. Think of it as gasoline for thunderstorms. The more gasoline you have and the bigger the engine you stick it in, the bigger the storm. In this case, we don't have storms and we don't have much fuel. So the combination of the two is not creating a lot of storms tonight. And that's partially because of yesterday's storms. They used up all of that fuel. And then we had clouds all day, which blocked the sun out until about mid-afternoon. And that kept the fuel from building up. So you could see overnight, Cape doesn't move back in until tomorrow afternoon in the heating of the day. That's what sunshine will do. You see that moderate levels of Cape. So isolated storm chances tomorrow. And when you look at the forecast tonight, that's why I've really scaled it back. In fact, I've got a 20-30% chance of a pop-up shower between now and 9. So that kind of shows you the rain chances have really come down compared to where we were, I would say, just 6 or 12 hours ago when we thought we would see a lot more activity. And so our short-range forecasting, we'll use our guidance here, our forecast model, kind of shows between now and 9, it's trying to develop a cluster there, maybe over the Piedmont, Charlotte, Lincolnton area. So I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. But if it does, it would be probably closer to 8 or 9 o'clock. And then you notice overnight things kind of completely dry out as we go past midnight, 6 a.m. I want to take a look at some of the cameras because this is another reason I don't think we'll see a ton of storms. Look at the amount of cloud cover that we have out there, albeit very cool looking cloud cover. This is our Monroe camera. Got sunset. We've got a mix of these little cumulus clouds in the foreground, but also some stratus clouds out there, which are helping to keep the atmosphere pretty stable. So even though we have a sunset not until 8:40, there's not much sun making it to the surface right now, creating the heating that we need for these storms. We'll take a look at our Dallas camera, which usually has a pretty good view. Look at all the clouds. Pretty thick cloud cover across most of the region right now, which is keeping any storms from developing, from getting stronger, and also from just developing in general, because we don't have the fuel, which is going to be hot, humid air. And so we'll look at the air temperatures, and this will show you a lot of 80s, even 70s. So obviously Lancaster makes sense, right? It's pouring there. We expect there to be cooler. It's 78 in Shelby. But even in Charlotte, which we touched 90 today, it's back to 87. That's one of the coolest 6:30 readings we have seen in a while. 81 in Salisbury, 82 in Statesville. So pretty cool air. Now, it is humid out there. The dew points right now running around 70. So the air you can wear is certainly, I mean, even in the mountains. I had a friend of mine in Asheville posted about how muggy it is. And this is how you know it's dry in Asheville. They're complaining about dew points in the 60s. So they're kind of spoiled. They typically don't have humid air, but it is really muggy across most of our areas. So we've got that moisture at the surface. But if you're wondering, oftentimes to get, heavy rain, it's just not moisture near the surface. When we see these tropical downpours, we have the atmosphere set up like this, where we have, and I think we've all agreed this color is coral. Lily and Jeb, right? We've come to some consensus on this color, coral. Okay. I got to get my Crayolas out and see what color this is, but I would say in salmon. I don't think that's salmon, but I like coral. I'm gonna hear my coral all the time, but coral is definitely that color. So that coral color, which actually is great because it's tropical air, so it kind of matches. Think coral, think tropics, Caribbean, right? We've got a ton of that, but then it moves out. We get into kind of the yellow, so it's still humid. But the reason we show you this is because when we get heavy rain, it's just not the humid air at the surface. It's the moisture above our heads. And so when these storms build 30, 40, 50,000 feet tall, they're not just squeezing the moisture out the surface. They can squeeze moisture out from the entire column of the atmosphere. And that's how you get those crazy rainfall rates. Flash flooding has been all over the news, obviously, in the past 7 days because of the tragedy in Texas, the flooding here in the Carolinas. We had flooding in New Mexico, flooding in Chicago. And the reason you see these crazy extreme rainfall events is because of deep moisture. When you have precipitable water that thick in the atmosphere or deep, it is going to create rainfall rates that the ground cannot hold. It's just going to run off like crazy. So anytime I see flash flooding, one of the first things I look for is how high those precipitable water rates are. And that's been kind of the case. So that location right now that we're watching, monitoring closely, is going to be those areas to our south. So that area right there. So super intern Lily is in here with us today. And Lily, I know you're kind of monitoring social media and user-generated content. Have you seen anything pop up from in that area of flash flooding? Because I think Lancaster County is the area I would probably immediately kind of turn to.
As of right now, I haven't seen anything per your social media, but
Yeah.
I am seeing a significant amount of lightning in that area.
Okay. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because this is a delayed report. We had a crazy report yesterday. So full transparency, we got a report yesterday initially, right, of a 4-year-old getting hit by lightning. Okay. Bad call on the dispatcher's part. Dispatcher heard over the radio 4 and thought 4-year-old, and it was 40. So, and the weird thing was, this could be a whole show, Jeb. The guy who got struck got on my Facebook page and commented on my post about it and said, "Hey, I might be a 4-year-old at heart, but I'm 40 years old." And he never got this much attention in his life. So I'm thankful that he's okay. We can laugh about it now, but it was kind of a funny thing. And I never had that happen before, where a victim like gets on my Facebook page and commented on it. But even the dispatcher reached out to me, apologized, because he just heard over the radio quickly they were responding and thought it was 4-year-old. But either way, it was kind of a good reminder of lightning safety. And that's the thing. We did lightning safety earlier in the week. We had John Jensians from the National Lightning Safety Council. And I thought one of the great things he said was, and I knew this fact, but it's pretty blows your mind. Like, I think most people think you're going to die when you get hit by lightning, right? And 90% of the people survive?
9 out of 10 people who are struck by lightning end up surviving.
So, but they end up with other, neurological issues, or sometimes debilitating things like headaches, muscle pain. Because if you think about lightning, it's electrical, and your electrical system in your body is your nervous system. And so that happens. And also, he said cardiac arrest is one of the biggest things that happens. So your heart briefly shuts down. And when your heart briefly shuts down, that's scary enough, but it can shut off blood flow to other organs. And because of the lack of oxygen, it can cause damage. So that's always a concern. So yeah, a good point, Lily, about the amount of lightning. In fact, let me look at the lightning tally there, because we can look at that. Yesterday was crazy. It's so weird, because lightning, there's not like perfect lightning climatology. It's always hard to tell, like, what is a lot of lightning. It's kind of just, personal experience. But I will say yesterday, some of those storms had ridiculous amount of lightning. I think at one point, when we were tallying a couple of the storms, which, by the way, when we do this is 15-minute time frame. At one point, we had 1,000 lightning strikes in 15 minutes in one little cluster of storms. So right now, 250, that's a lot of lightning for just that little cluster. And again, remember, the crazy thing about this, every one of those is hitting something. It's hitting the ground, a tree. So think how crazy that is. That number of lightning strikes, it hits something. Now, a lot of times, transmission towers are hit, buildings are hit, and they're grounded, so it actually has no impact. If a structure is properly grounded with a lightning rod and has everything grounded into the ground, you take that current, it goes right into the ground, and it doesn't cause any issues. In fact, your home should be grounded. If you're ever working in your flower beds or mowing around your yard and you see like a metal spike in the ground with a cable attached to it, and you're like, what the heck is that thing? That's the grounding cable for your house. Usually your plumbing system, your electrical system, and usually near your meter, you might see that stake in the ground, and it should be wrapped around those systems. And so that's, if your house gets hit, it'll take it to that wire and put it into the ground and not into your house. So yeah, if you ever see that, and it might be something to check. If you're a homeowner, make sure you maybe next time the house gets inspected or you have somebody work on the house, just double check everything is grounded. I know back in the day when a lot of people put those DirecTV satellite dishes up, they never grounded those things, and those things would get hit all the time. So lightning is a big part of what we're seeing out there right now. And you can see those kind of pushing off to the east. I am shocked we have not seen a flood advisory, to be honest with you, because yesterday I will give huge props to the Raleigh National Weather Service office, because they were quick to issue warnings for areas that were impacted by Chantal. And in fact, some of these flood advisories are kind of what I would call pre-warnings, if you will. They put them out before the storms developed to give people even more heads up that there could be flooding. And that's why you see that area flood warning till midnight. Look at that. There's not a drop of rain falling there, but there's likely water running off, and probably a heads up for areas that do see rain coming through anytime in the next hour or so. So another area we'll watch is up here in the mountains. We're starting to see a couple more storms develop up here in parts of Watauga and Avery County. So let me quickly do a storm track. We can actually track these tonight. yesterday Brittany and I were struggling because the storms weren't moving. So let's do a quick little track on these, and we can kind of show you where those are heading. So right now it's about 6:45, and remember, if you're watching on WCNC Plus, you're probably getting a little delay. So as I will always say, especially when we're streaming, please give or take about 5-10 minutes because of that minor delay in the stream. So that's why we have the time that I'm talking right now on the screen, just so you know. Buffalo Cove, 646, Patterson, 707. Lenore hit pretty hard yesterday, 742. And Wilkesboro area, North Wilkesboro area as well, 753. Mount Herman around 804. And Call, that's a new one to me. The town of Call. I don't think I've ever seen that one before. And if you ever see a weird town on here, by the way, sometimes our database has got some weird towns in it, and they're not even really towns. They're just crossroads, or like there's a one place called Red Cross. I saw the sign when I drove through that town, but there's nothing there. It's just a sign. It's like a historical marker. So some weird towns pop up there. But that's where that storm is going right now. And that, now I say that, I'm going to try to bring up our blowing rock camera real quickly. We have a resort cam up there because it looks like it's storming not too far away. So we'll see if this will play. Yeah, definitely raining and blowing rocks. So look, oh man, blowing rock's so beautiful. Look at all the flowers and trees up there. It's so weird to see the blowing rock camera in the summer versus the winter. It's just, everything's lush and green right now. And remember, their temperatures generally in the 70s to low 80s this time of year. So it's almost like spring for us, but in the mountains, it's that way all summer. Looks like a good little downpour had moved through there, but it's dry. I see people walking out there and not doing too much. Another camera we can check is up in High Brighton Mountain, which, if you're familiar with that one, it's in Caldwell County near Lenore. So I gotta see if we can see what that one looks like. Of course, it's down, so we can't see that one. We'll try our Boone cam as I'm talking to you. I'm punching these up real quickly. Boone is on King Street there. We'll bring that one up, and dry as can be right there. Downtown Boone looks dry. So most of those storms in the mountains are just to the east, moving through the Wilkesboro area, it looks like. Maybe our Lake Norman camera might see it. Might switch over to our Lake Norman camera, which yesterday had a pretty good shelf cloud. Actually, that looks better than yesterday. Yesterday, this shot was crazy. We had a big old shelf cloud coming at, and even this camera looks great because it's bright, and look at the traffic actually flowing. This is one of the slowest sections of I-77 when you cross over Lake Norman, and on the weekends it's even worse because all the truckers slow down to look at the girls on the boats. And it definitely gets crazy there. Everyone just kind of slows down, and there's a bunch of boats that usually go in there. So we'll keep an eye on those storms coming out of the mountains, but the most immediate threat, as we mentioned, moving through these areas. Now, as we were showing you, it is actually moving, but man, Heath Springs area right there, I'm going to focus in on there. We've got a lot of cloud-to-ground strikes there, and we're going to look at the rainfall rates. So the rainfall rates tell you how fast the rain is falling. And let's just go 3.13 inches per hour on the south side. This is the exact area we had flooding yesterday. Now, it's not going to rain for a whole hour. That's if the rain stayed there for a full hour. So let's say it rains for a half hour. You do the math, it's like 1.5 inches of rain. So, gives you a good idea. So, you're getting a pretty good clip of rain, and that kind of rate, even if it only falls for 15 minutes, is going to run off too quickly. Usually about 2 inches per hour plus, depending on the soil. And the reason we're so worried about this area is yesterday it just got clobbered with heavy rain, so there's no room for this water. The soil is saturated. It's like trying to clean. It's like having a mop, and you're trying to mop up a spill, but you didn't wring it out. It's just going to spread the water around. It's not going to do anything. So that's what we're seeing in that area. We can look at the rainfall, and right there, it's actually starting to pile up. That's Heath Springs. That's since midnight, by the way. The 24 hours starts at midnight. And we can see that's that looks a little high estimate, but even if it's 1.5, 2 inches, that is likely going to be pretty high and cause some issues. We do have special weather statements for this area as well. And if you're not familiar with special weather statements, they're issued for storms that are sub-severe. They don't have 1-inch hail or 58-mile-per-hour winds. So this storm over Lancaster, Chesterfield, and Kershaw counties, for our viewers in Kershaw, they do detect winds of up to 50 miles per hour in there, so I'm not surprised that we're seeing that. And it is moving east at 25. That's the fastest moving storm I've seen in the last 2 days. They've been moving 10 to 15. So that's great news. But the thing about fast moving storms is the forward speed is at least the minimum amount of wind it produces. So what I mean by that is if a storm is moving 25 miles per hour, it's going to produce at least a 25 mile per hour wind. Now, if it also has 30 mile per hour winds in it, you can add that on. So combined, you'd have 55 mile per hour winds. So kind of gives you an idea that fast moving storms in and of themselves can produce some pretty strong winds. We'll look at the velocity data. It's right on the edge of our map. I'm actually going to have to look at Columbia velocity data here. So yeah, the reds are towards Columbia, so you're looking at some pretty strong winds. So special weather statement now, but surprised we did not see a flash flood warning or a flood advisory at the very least. Look at the velocity data for these. So not a lot of wind in these storms in general, but enough that there's some special weather statements being issued for them as they push off to the southeast. So I can see that one moving out. Let's look back at the Monroe camera, because I think this one actually is facing the right direction. We'll see which way. That one is looking more northeast. I should have spun that camera. I'm going to look at our other camera, because our Monroe camera at the government center, I believe the other one faces south. So this is downtown Monroe. Both of these cameras, by the way, are on the same building. They just face different directions in downtown Monroe. So this one, yeah, see how dark it is to the south? So we're looking south towards Lancaster County. So while it's dry and completely fine there in downtown Monroe, looking off to the south, you can see how dark it is, because those are the storms that are just off to the south producing all that rain. So we'll go back to the radar here. One thing we can look at is we can try to pull up the real-time storm reports. So I'm going to pause it right there. We'll bring up the storm reports. And I think those are the flood reports from yesterday. I'll have to double check as I click on these, because those look like the same ones from yesterday. So 7:27. So we're not there yet. So that's clearly from last night, unless this is a future report. So yeah, this is from last night. This is where we saw the flooding. That's kind of weird. It's almost the exact same time. County Emergency Manager reported flooding there. So that's 7:27. This one was at 7:56 last night. So Heath Springs area. This is why we're kind of focused on this area. And, in the last couple of days, we were alert because the potential was this was the concern, the same area getting repeatedly hit. There's a couple different ways you can get flash flooding. You can get too much rain too fast, or you can get rain that falls in an area that previously saw rain, or a burn scar like we saw in New Mexico. So there's a couple different mechanisms to get flash flooding. And while yesterday the flash flooding was just because it rained too fast, today we could get flash flooding just because it's falling over the same area that's saturated. So you could get a third of the rain we had yesterday and still see the same impacts. And that happened yesterday in the Raleigh-Durham area. They only had a couple inches of rain. I think at some spots like 3 inches was the max, but it was 1 to 2. The problem was on Sunday with Chantal, they saw 12 inches of rain in 6 hours. So that rain moved through so quickly that it caused some huge issues there. So the rainfall rates around Kershaw, Mount Pisgah, and then Jefferson, which is actually over in Chesterfield County. I'll kind of zoom in on this area and I'll kind of pinpoint some of these rainfall rates, which are, the kind that can cause flash flooding. But as Lily mentioned, at least they're moving. And we've seen that with the 25 mile per hour wind, or 25 mile per hour wind, I should say 25 mile per hour movement. But 2 to 3 inches of rain per hour is definitely enough that you're going to see some minor flooding. So the other saving grace in this area, if you've ever driven down there, very sandy soil. So you tend to have a pretty good chance for some of this to be soaking in and not run off as quickly. As you get into South Carolina, going over, especially into Chesterfield County, as you get over towards McBee, which is McLeod's peach farm is there, one of the biggest peach farms in South Carolina. It's huge if you drive down that way. On the way to the beach on 150, and then up towards Jefferson, and then Pageland up there, which is, the watermelon capital there of Chesterfield County. That's where they have the Watermelon Festival. Very sandy soil, great for growing watermelons down there, but also soaks in a lot of a lot of the rainfall. So Chesterfield County can handle some higher rainfall rates than other areas. But as these push south towards the Darlington, Florence area, heading down towards Darlington Motor Speedway, and Hartsfield and Florence area, and then Dillon is over there on the right, right off of I-95 there. So it's heading towards Buc-ee's, guys. The rain's heading towards Buc-ee's. Everybody, thank gosh they got those giant canopies. They can all get the 110 pumps or whatever they have down there. But yeah, that's we're heading down towards down there towards I-90 in Florence. That's such a popular travel area because everybody going up and down the East Coast and then everybody going to the beach goes through that little corridor there. That's why you would think it's so weird why Florence, South Carolina, but that's such a confluence of different travel routes, and that's why there's a Buc-ee's there, because so many people go through that area going to the beach or going from Florida to New York or the Northeast through that area. It's a crazy area for that reason. So yeah, good news. That storm is moving pretty quickly and actually heading that way. So for folks in the Midlands of South Carolina, you've got some big time storms around Columbia, just east of Lake Murray. These are heading towards Orangeburg, Manning, Sumter. So it looks like South Carolina is going to have the most active weather tonight, and these continue to push through. I'll go up to Charlotte because we are going to see a little bit of rain moving through. Boy, I'm glad that storm died. That storm that came through Cherokee County, that's right over York right now. You see it. That storm had a severe thunderstorm warning with it for a while as it was moving through the upstate, and it hit the county line and fell apart. And I know a lot of people often say, I live in a bubble and the storms always fall apart. But there's other mechanisms going on. You got to remember, these storms have a life cycle. They're either developing, they're in their mature stage, or they're weakening. Rarely are they in all three. So if you're under it when it's a mature storm, it's going to be the strongest it is. But if that happens to your west, it's going to be weakening as it heads your way because it's kind of done its thing. It's going to weaken. Now, new storms can develop sometimes on the outflow, but we often see those storms weaken as they push through. Now, the Charlotte area, not much rain out there. There are a few showers beginning to develop. And then the storms we showed you in the mountains. So those are actually looking pretty good now coming out of the mountains. So we'll see if these hold together. These are another cluster that we'll have to keep an eye on. Moving into upper Caldwell County, upper Burke County. So Lenoir, Patterson, Sawmills, Gamewell, down towards Little River, eventually Unifor region. So heading down that region. So I'll ask you guys know what the Unifor region is? You guys ever heard that term before?
I have not, no.
New to me.
Oh, so this is a great time because I get a lot of people ask me about that. So unless you're from that area, you've never heard that term. The Unifor region is the Hickory area. And why is it called the Unifor region? If you guys look on the map, there's 4 counties that come together there.
The Unifor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Alexander, this is Caldwell, this is Burke, and this is Catawba County. The union of those 4 counties is called the Unifor region. And you Google, you'll find all kinds of stores up there called Unifor, legal, Unifor, whatever. That area is what it's called. It's called the Unifor. So it's kind of the greater Hickory area because the 4 counties come together. I had a friend of mine from North Carolina and never heard that term before. And I'm like, it's really close. You got to be from that area to kind of know. But so if you ever hear us refer to that, that's that area where the 4 counties come together. It's a very unique area. It's very cool. Downtown Hickory is definitely up and coming town. If you've ever been downtown, it has got a great downtown vibe. But so yeah, if you're in that area, those storms in the mountains are probably going to swing down your way in about 30 minutes. But here comes that big cluster now into Chesterfield. Chesterfield County now kind of inundated over towards Sherrill, Patrick, Chesterfield, Sherrill State Park, over towards the PD River there. Actually, I should take a look at our Lylesville camera. Look at Anson County. I think we're facing the wrong direction, but we can see the PD River sometimes. So, ooh, beautiful sky over there in Anson County. So off to the right, yeah, thanks, Jeb, right above my head, that is a nice cumulonimbus cloud right there. That is your classic thunderstorm. Let me put this up here so I can point to it. We had a little earlier in the week, I was on a crazy Reddit post about people seeing a mushroom cloud and thought something was going on. And that mushroom cloud ended up just being a thunderstorm. So oftentimes what happens is these clouds you see like this is what a thunderstorm looks like from a distance or from above. It's super bright white. It's dark down here if you're down here, but this is the updraft. The updraft is going up, and that tells you how strong it is. It's going straight up into the atmosphere. It'll keep going up. If it hits the top of the troposphere, it'll start spreading out in both directions, and the cloud can take on the shape of a mushroom cloud or an anvil. So if you ever see those are giant thunderstorms. And by the way, those storms can be as tall as 40, 50, 60,000 feet. They're huge. They can actually shoot up into the stratosphere. So that's what we're seeing there. And I'm actually trying to figure out where that storm is. If we're looking kind of northeast from that camera, let's see if we can find it on the radar. Because I know we're looking north because the sun is coming in from the left of the screen, which is west, and it's highlighting the left side of that tower, so you know you're looking north. So let's look at the camera, or let's look at the radar. We'll see if we can find that actual storm that we were looking at. And you'll be surprised. The storm on radar probably doesn't look that impressive at all. So Lylesville was over here. Oh, I can see it. There it is. So we're going to stop it right here. So the storm we were probably seeing is up here in the Troy area. So I'll show you where Lylesville is. Lylesville is right here east of Wadesboro, right there. And we were looking up to the north towards Montgomery and Moore counties. So we were seeing that little cell near Troy. So the cell we just saw on the camera was likely this one, if I can grab my cursor again. That one right there. And we can actually see if it looks like that in real life. Well, we know what it looks like in real life, but let's look at the radar signature of that. And there it is. It's our little Doppler slicer, so you can see it's got a little, that's only about 20,000 foot tall. So it wasn't that tall. That's why it isn't mushrooming out, because it's pretty small. But that's what that storm looks like. And we're looking right at that storm on radar. That's what it looked like on radar. We're actually looking at flood warning too. But from the actual camera, you'll see it there. That's what it looks like from a distance. So kind of gives you a good idea on what these storms look like in reality. One of the best things about storm chasing, in my opinion, is seeing what these storms look like in real life versus what they look like on radar. It is a great trend. So we're here at the top of the hour, and so far so good. We haven't seen any warnings. No advisories, no flood warnings. I'm actually somewhat shocked, Lily, that we have not had a flood advisory yet.
I know, me as well, especially with all that rain that came in yesterday and last night.
I mean, I'm looking at chat, and I don't see anybody. There's no storm reports coming in. This is a good thing when no news is good news, guys. In the weather business, when you don't hear anything, the only time I would tell you that was bad was during Helene. When we knew places in the mountains were getting hit, we couldn't hear anything because we just knew the communication was bad. But when you have storms like this that are impacting populated areas and you're not getting social media reports or any reports at all, it's a pretty good sign that not a lot has happened. That's one thing that has changed dramatically in my career, is that you end up relying a lot on first-person reports because everyone's got a phone and a camera and 4K imagery in their hand. They can send you pictures and things instantly of things happening. So when a storm is going over a populated area and you're not getting anything, not a post, not an image, not a tweet, not anything, you're definitely seeing that the storms aren't producing much in the way of damage. But again, this area is pretty desolate down there in the PD region, southern parts of Lancaster, Chesterfield, Chesterfield County, Lancaster, and into Kershaw County. You're seeing a lot of areas where not a lot of people down there, but there are some clusters of areas, some towns these are going through where we're not getting a lot of reports. And emergency managers are really good about sending in information as well. Got a lot of trained spotters in that area that could give us updates as well, and we're not seeing that. So we'll kind of hold up. I will show you to the south, though. We do have a couple warnings down in South Carolina. I told you South Carolina was going to be the active area. I'm going to switch over to the South Carolina radar. So real quickly, we'll put the Columbia radar on. Because remember, a lot of people are watching us across the Carolinas here. We'll turn on the Columbia radar. And Georgetown, that's a big warning. That is for Georgetown and Williamsburg counties down there in South Carolina. So that's for people down in the low country heading up towards the Grand Strand. This is just south of Myrtle's Inlet, Myrtle Beach area. So folks at the beach are probably going to get clobbered here shortly because all these are drifting towards the beach right now. And as we heard early in the week from our lightning safety expert, everyone on the beach is probably looking out at the water and not behind them. And these storms are all coming from the inland side. So this is a great example of how these storms can sneak up on you. And we actually had a tornado warning briefly down towards Savannah, Georgia, right near the state line with South Carolina. So South Carolina definitely getting the bulk of this. I'll loop this a couple of times, and you can see how many storms are ongoing across the Midlands of South Carolina. Columbia in particular, a very flash flood prone area, so we could see some flood warnings down that way, but so far I haven't seen any. In fact, I'm going to look to see got any special weather statements down in that area. We don't. I am seeing some. It's a lightning report. I was hoping it was another lightning strike because I just saw the lightning bolt. Well, the emergency manager down there in near Charleston is reporting a lightning strike at 6 o'clock. So a lot of lightning down there. We also had a flood report coming out of the central part of South Carolina near Columbia. Some River Creek and overflowing into cropland. That's around 6:19. So we are seeing some what we call MPing reports, which are individuals reporting, crowdsourcing basically, some reports. But up in our area, I'm not seeing any reports of anything like that, though we do have a special weather statement for southern sections of Anson and Richmond counties because of that cluster that's moving up along Highway 9 there in South Carolina. So this area right in here did prompt a special weather statement for the southern parts, basically south of Highway 74 as you go out towards Rockingham. So what's the verdict, guys? Got any reports down there? None? It's pretty quiet.
Still not really seeing anything. Over here.
And if you're watching and you guys have anything to report, please grab the WCNC app if you can. One of the greatest features of this app, by the way, is the Near Me feature. It is amazing because you can send an image to us or a video even, and it'll give us your exact location so we have a good idea where it is. And it's quick for us to turn those around to show other people. And, you know, when we give these pleas for pictures and videos, we want you to do it safely. Please do not put yourself in harm's way. But the reason they're so vitally important, and I will tell you this as a meteorologist, this radar is great. I see a lot of things that other people can't see. Some of you look at radar on your phone and look at radar all the time and you can see things. But I would tell you the public in general responds to pictures and videos way more than radar imagery. And you could help somebody else seek shelter or, take a storm more seriously if they see images that help them confirm that there's a threat. So it's just something that really helps us tremendously. And so far, we have not seen many reports, which is a good thing. So Near Me feature is a great thing. It's also where you can watch WCNC Plus. And Jeb, I know we're getting credit now for watching on your phone. So I can actually tell you, you don't have to drag your smart TV to the pool. You can take your phone out or your iPad or other device and watch on your phone. And WCNC Plus is right there at the top. It's always streaming up there. And I've always loved that because when we do severe weather coverage, the first thing we tell you to do when there's a tornado warning or a big storm, go to your shelter location. Obviously, your TV's not in there, but you can take this with you, and we will give you updates while you're in shelter. And then what we've tried to do, we're so good at telling you when to go to shelter, we try hard to tell you when it's all clear so you can get out. The worst thing that could happen is you get stuck in your safe spot for an hour or two. You know, most tornado warnings are 25 to 40 minutes max, and it's not going to last that whole time. So oftentimes we will tell you when it's safe to get out of that shelter location. So another great reason to have the WCNC app, because you can watch us on your phone, and when you're traveling, you can watch us anywhere across the country too. You don't have to be here back in Charlotte or the Carolinas. So let's look at that Monroe camera again, because I'm trying to see if the sky is clearing a little bit. It is. Oh, there we go. Boy, it's going to be a beautiful sunset tonight. The reason I'm showing you this too is I love sunsets in general, but this isn't anything to do with storms, but it's my other passion is astronomy. And if you have some people acting weird around you today, I might have the reason why. Tonight is the full buck moon. And I said buck. We're not on air, but we are online. We will keep it FCC clear. So as in deer, okay? Male deer. This is the time of year, and trust me, I see them because I have so many deer in my neighborhood. This is the time the antlers start growing on the deer. So the full moon of July gets the name the buck moon. Sometimes the salmon moon too, because they start to spawn this year, this time of year. But it was actually full at 4:36 in the afternoon. It was not above the horizon. And by the way, you can see the moon during the day. It's another thing that blows people's minds. But you can see during the day, but it wasn't visible because it was below the horizon. Moonrise is coming up at 9:02, which is about 20 minutes after sunset. Look off in the eastern sky. You should see it rising shortly after. Peak viewing all night long. So you should be able to see it all night into the morning. So even though the skies are kind of cloudy in a few spots, later tonight you should see it. And probably a lot of you will notice it when the sky's clear because it's going to be super bright as it comes up. That's the view from Monroe. We'll look at the Anson County camera because it was clearing early as well. It's starting to clear. We can see that little storm. And then our Dallas camera, which would have the best view if we moved it. We'll kind of show it to you. The Dallas camera is always my favorite camera. So we're socked in with clouds over there. So we can't see anything over there. But eventually we will see the moon there. Let's look at the satellite imagery because it'll show us not a lot. Yeah, it's all high clouds, but it should clear out. That's part of the reason we're probably not going to see many storms because not only is the air stable, but when you have clouds, there's nothing to heat it up. So this is really kind of squashing any chance for storms. So yeah, and I'm not complaining because last night was enough. That was a long time to be tracking storms. And poor people in Lincolnton got clobbered. We had a lot of street flooding there. We had a couple lightning strikes. We told you about the 40-year-old hit in northern Iredell County. And we had, I think, a lightning strike in Hickory and a lightning strike up in Ashe County that I don't think it was officially reported, but I got reports that somebody may have been struck up there, maybe not to the point where they sought emergency response help, but it was reported. So that's really the main cluster there, moving through Chesterfield County, and then we've got this secondary, got one popping up around Hickory, so looks like a little cell's developing there. So maybe a couple around the Unifor region, guys. They're in Burke County. That one's traveling right between the Burke, actually close to the airport, because ironically enough, the Hickory Airport is actually in Burke County. It's on the other side of the county line. So there's near Eichard, east of Valdez, pushing off to the southeast, not too far from the Crawdad Stadium there, pushing to the southeast. It's moving into Catawba County. So southwestern Catawba County, you might see a little storm. We'll have to watch that doesn't get any stronger, because the only reason I say that is I don't expect it to get super strong, but if it gets bigger, that would be heading right towards Lincolnton. And Lincolnton, we had a ton of flooding there last night in the downtown or near the splash pad there in downtown. A lot of videos of cars stranded and actually flooded out. So at one point last night, I think Lincolnton, I'm going to look actually how much they had. It was a pretty good bullseye right over downtown. That's the 48-hour rainfall totals for Lincolnton. I'll plot them here real quickly, and you can see last night about 3.2 inches, 2.7 on the north side. So if we see that little cell kind of move down there, that would be another area we would probably watch pretty closely to make sure we don't see any flooding develop in that general region. But that's a spot that we had flooding yesterday. If I had to pick two locations that are most susceptible to flooding today, it certainly would be Lancaster, Chester County, as well as Lincoln County because of the rainfall that we saw yesterday. And again, that doesn't look like that storm is really that powerful, but it probably would not take that much. And I'll widen it out because I'll give people a good perspective on everything. We'll kind of show. I turn the flood warnings off. So that's the overall view. And you see what kind of sticks out in the map to you right now is the cluster of storms right there pushing down to South Carolina. So South Carolina clearly has some of the highest rainfall rates and some of the biggest storms, and that's actually where we have a severe thunderstorm warning down in that region. You can also text those videos and pictures to us as well. If you don't want to download the WCNC app, you can just send them to us via text. Numbers on the screen there, 704-329-3600. Easy one to remember. For the old heads in Charlotte, that was our channel number, 36. They used to go by all the time. We were 6 for a while because that was our station number on cable and satellite, but 36.1 is where we are digitally too. So, News Channel 36 was our old name. So 3600 is the number there, 704-329-3600 if you want to text us something. And again, those storms are pushing off to the southeast pretty quickly. So I think we should be good once those get out of here, because I think the ones to the northwest are going to end up weakening, which they already are. If you look carefully, even that little cell near Hickory, it looks like it's collapsing a little bit. Another one up there, which is very close to where that lightning strike was yesterday, Love Valley. It's actually in eastern Alexander County. So Love Valley is actually right on the county line of Iredell and Alexander County. That is pushing southeast. So we'll keep an eye on that little cell too. But that's one of those ones that you're probably all sitting here, a downpour, and that thing comes out of nowhere. That's moving through. And then Lenore, your heads up there, that one's heading right for you. I'll do a track on that, because if we continue to move that at about 15 miles per hour, it's going to be moving down through the foothills. And you could see I'll move this right over the time. So Patterson, 7:16, which is pretty much right now. Lenore, 7:35, so you've got about 15 minutes in Lenore. Hudson, 7:56. Granite Falls, 8:16. Drexel, Little River's over in Alexander County, so you're looking at closer to about 8:20-ish or so. Drexel would be down there just west of Hickory there in eastern Burke County, traveling south there, so that's south of Lake Hickory, moving to the southeast pretty quickly. About 15 miles. I say quickly, quicker than yesterday, because they were not moving yesterday. To look at the actual speed there. Let's see, definitely looks a little. Everything looks a little faster than yesterday. It was definitely much faster than what we saw yesterday with some of these storms. Doesn't look like a whole lot in those cells in the mountains. There's not much wind, but there is some lightning. As you can see on the radar map, we've got a ton of lightning showing up there. Let's quickly look at the lightning just in that cell. Remember, this is a 15-minute tally. So, yeah, it's 27 strikes. It's lightning. Lightning's all dangerous. But compared to yesterday when we had crazy amounts of lightning, it does feel like these are lesser severe, if you will, than what we had yesterday moving through the area. So let's look at the short-range forecast for the Charlotte area. So for folks in the metro, we're only expecting about a 20% chance of rain here in the next couple of hours. So we think a lot of this is going to go around us and kind of avoid us. Now, if you're planning for the weekend, I will tell you that the weekend is looking pretty good, though. It's hard this time of year and in this pattern to say we're completely out of the woods for any rainfall at all. Because the atmosphere is hot and humid and we see pop-up storms. So that's kind of our future cast right now, and you see the storms kind of move out quickly. I mean, a future cast shows things kind of falling apart pretty quickly tonight, and then tomorrow during the day, you see the storms try to refire, but there's not as many of them. I mean, at 5 o'clock, you're looking at sparse storm coverage, and because of all the sunshine and the heat of the day, you're likely going to see temperatures in the low 90s, possibly mid 90s in a few spots. As we go into Saturday, we could see the storms bubble up again, but just like we saw today, you're looking at, just isolated nature. So not crazy amounts of rain. And then we'll go towards Sunday, at least we'll get into Sunday afternoon. Again, just isolated storms overall. So not looking at a ton of storms. So the weekend forecast looks like this right now. And so for folks planning for the weekend, Saturday, we've got a 40% chance of rain, temperatures low 90s. By the time we get to Sunday, we're looking at mid 90s and just a 20% chance of rain. So you can see the scattered storms will be around, but it won't be wild. It won't be crazy every afternoon. But the summer storms, we get what's called pulse storms. At any point, they can bubble up and produce a strong storm. So the 7-day forecast for folks planning way, way ahead, mid-90s Sunday. And then next week, you notice every single day there's at least one small chance of a storm, even if it's 20, 30%. That's kind of what I would say 20 to 40% is kind of your typical summer pattern. But once you get 50, 60%, like you see Monday, Wednesday, and then next weekend, that's a little bit above average. So those would be the days where you have a higher chance of seeing some rain. And on Monday, that's actually when I see some of that tropical moisture making a little bit of a return to the area. So let you digest that 10-day forecast. 2 Charlotte FC home matches, by the way. And I love Charlotte FC, but boy, they have trouble with lightning. So many delays. Remember the policy at Bank of America Stadium. 8 miles from the stadium, you're going to have to wait 30 minutes until there's no lightning within 30 miles, 8 miles of the stadium. I'm actually going to bring that up because of those 2 games on there. So if you've ever gone to anything at the stadium, by the way, this is concerts, anything at the stadium, 8-mile radius. Seating bowl and field are evacuated. They shut down the gates because they don't want the gate agents out there. You got to seek shelter in the building somewhere, usually the concourse, a car or building if they close down the gates. And you wait there until there's no more lightning within 8 miles for 30 minutes at least. So I wish they would put that clock up on the screen there so people could see it. But that's the policy. They don't always tell you that. But if you go to any event there, I know some of the cup games this happened to. This also happened. I think Beyonce's concert might have had a brief delay in it. Can't remember what concert that was.
We've got some video from David Middleton from Jefferson, South Carolina.
Okay, so that's going to be close to where we had the big storms. That's down there, right where we had the heart of them. So, yeah, so he's got some pretty good video there. Ooh, well, that confirms the lightning. Yeah, that's a lot of rain coming down. His pool looks like it might be overflowing a little bit, which is always a sign you got a ton of rain. Usually pool owners like a little bit of rain this time of year because it cools the pool down. Otherwise, the pool is super hot. Yeah. So thanks, Dave, for sending that in. That's a great video of some of the. Your lawn looks good, by the way, if you're watching. He's got nice Bermuda lawn. That stuff, it loves this weather. So yeah, he's got some pretty good rain falling down there. And if we go to the radar, you can see where that's coming from. So I'll put Jefferson right in the middle of the screen. So that's where that video is coming from. He's still in the rain, but it looks like the worst of it is actually starting to shift off to the east. So thanks to that video down there. That's the kind of video we love to see, kind of shows people what's going on. The other thing you notice, there wasn't any hail. There wasn't really strong winds. Just a lot of lightning and big, fat tropical raindrops, which are pretty typical for these type of storms. So that cluster is kind of what we call coalescing. It's becoming like a big complex of storms. We often, you may hear us say this. I know Chris uses the term. And it's meteorologically, it's multi-cell clusters, bunch of little storms that cluster together. They form into bigger clusters, and then the cold pool that they produce, which is the cooler air, helps drive these things for hours. And so you continue to see more and more of these storms push off to the southeast. So they're non-severe, but they're still strong. We've got special weather statements, lightning, heavy rain, and some wind. But so far, we have not seen one single warning in our area.
I'd also like to add.
Jinx.
The lightning in our area isn't specifically what we use for severe criteria. So
Yeah.
the fact that we haven't had any warnings doesn't mean that it's not dangerous outside with that lightning.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's difficult because, we don't have a criteria for lightning. And Lily's right because, oftentimes I'll get this from viewers and I understand it. There'll be a ton of thunder and lightning and it's super loud and people go, this is a horrible storm. And I'll be like, is there wind or hail? And they'll be like, no, it's just a lot of lightning. So yeah, those storms can sound horrible, but they're really not the criteria for severe weather, but they're still dangerous because of the lightning in themselves. And remember, every thunderstorm by definition has lightning in it. That's what makes it a thunderstorm. So every thunderstorm will have that, and it can cause delays at the airport. We talked earlier this week, and we're hoping to have somebody on from Charlotte Douglas International to talk about this. Why are there ground stops at the airport when there's thunderstorms in the area? Lightning within 5 miles of the airport shuts operations down temporarily. And guess what? They wait 30 minutes too until the lightning. So their radius is a little smaller than Bank of America, but they still wait 30 minutes until the storms are out of the area. So I'm going to widen. We'll do a big wide view here, guys, so we can see everything. And it is much quieter for the Piedmont, the Western Carolinas. The big storms right now are moving into the PD region, the Midlands of South Carolina, and it looks like the Grand Strand, and then down towards the Low Country. I'm going to turn on the satellite and radar together, and you can see kind of the Carolinas as a whole. Look at all those storms to the south. That's a lot of lightning down there. Oh, we got something going on with our satellite imagery. But you can see they're all pushing to the east, and unlike yesterday where it felt like they were moving in different directions, every single one of these storms seems to be moving in the exact same direction, off to the south and east, or east, maybe a little northeast. It's hard. As I said, everything's moving west to east in some vector. So everything's moving off towards the coast, and that's where things will move. And when you look back to the west, there's not new storms forming. So the chance of us seeing some regeneration of storms looks pretty small right now. We should see things stay relatively calm. So I think at the bottom of the hour, Jeb, we'll probably, end our stream of weather coverage here unless something gets crazy. But here's the thing, we'll jump back in if we have to. But we'll still be on WCNC Plus with news coverage and other stories of the day going on. But if weather is ever an issue, trust me, we will be on WCNC Plus. We'll have a loop going, and all of our meteorologists, our weather impact team is great about jumping on to let you guys know of inclement weather, even when it's not severe. As Lily mentioned, sometimes we've got storms that are going to produce lightning and flooding. They may not rise to the level of severe warning criteria, but for you, if you have outdoor plans, or which often happens when people have pets or kids that are susceptible to wake up in the middle of the night for loud thunder, we'll be there to let you know about those as well. But the good news is, unlike last night, we actually have some movement to our storm. So let's go in and just do a quick recap here of what's going on in Chesterfield County's cloud. Lancaster County's beginning to clear out, but Chesterfield, McBee area, Chesterfield, over towards Cheraw, and then heading down to the southeast, so southeastern Chesterfield County, and then heads up in southern Anson County, so the Morven area, Mount Pleasant, Ruby there in northern Chesterfield, and then parts of Richmond County, so southern Richmond County in particular. I'm thinking south of the Rock there, so pushing out towards Laurinburg and eventually heading towards Lumberton area. And those areas, I think, is where we'll probably see some of the most activity. Do have a couple warnings for the folks up in the Raleigh-Durham area. We do have some pretty active weather going on up there as well. And that's an area which, man, they've been clobbered the last couple of days. It's been brutal up there. Flooding, severe. Ooh, that's a nice outflow boundary. You can see that on the radar. See that little rush of cool air coming out of there. So that's all for wind up there. That's a sign that those storms are producing some significant wind, and we can actually look at the wind here real quickly. Look at the velocity. So, yeah. So in Clayton area, we've got a downburst east of Gardner, and then it looks like down there towards Blues Creek area. So yeah, definitely have some strong winds up in the Raleigh-Durham area. So for viewers up there streaming us, I know you're probably sick and tired of the storms because you've had a rough week. Started with Chantal on Sunday, missing you guys mainly to the west, but then the last 2 days it has been crazy active there, and we've seen a lot of severe weather and flooding, unfortunately, especially on the west side of the Raleigh-Durham area, including Durham, including Chapel Hill, Burlington, Mebane, over towards Burlington. You've got one flood warning up there, but you can see some of the river flood warnings, and that's all along the rivers, which are continuing to drain off to the south, and so that's why you're seeing the flood warnings up in that area. So again, we're going to keep an eye on this evening, but it is a much quieter night than we had last night. We had a lot of flooding, even some severe thunderstorm warnings, so it was a pretty active afternoon and evening yesterday. This evening, we're looking at much calmer weather with just an isolated shower storm moving through the area. We'll keep an eye on these storms coming out of the mountains, but they're running into an environment that is not conducive to maintain their strength. And the strongest storms in our area over Chesterfield County, those are moving out fairly quickly. So as those push to the south and east, they should be exiting Chesterfield County within the next 20 to 30 minutes, heading towards I-95. So folks traveling I-95 between Florence and the state line, I should say, towards Lumberton, that's where you'll see some of the worst weather here between, I'd say, 7:40 and maybe 8:30 p.m. as those push off to the east. But make sure you don't go anywhere, because we're going to stay here on WCNC Plus. Colin Mayfield's going to be in here shortly, and we're going to continue to track some of the news of the day, but we will keep the radar going for you so that you can keep a close eye and track this as we go into the evening. And if anything should pop up, I'm going to jump back in here on WCNC Plus. We'll try to do a cut-in. Might jump in at the end of Colin's show close to 9 o'clock if we do an update, if we do see things still developing or going on out there. But I'm hoping by then we could be completely dry. Just heads up, the next couple of days, even though we're not expecting widespread severe anything like we had today or yesterday in a few parts of the area, that scattered afternoon storms are still going to be a thing that we're going to have to deal with through the weekend and into early next week. We're kind of locked into the dog days of summer. That's more than just a saying. It's the dog days of summer with heat and humidity, but also with the pop-up storms, which will be with us just about every single day. So we'll leave it with that right now. But again, if you do have reports, send them our way. Use the Near Me app, or text them, or send them to us via email, social media, any way you can get them to us. The number on the screen, 704-329-3600. Great way to get us some images. And thank you to everybody who chimed in tonight and sent us some of those images earlier that showed us I think it was Dave down there in Jefferson sent us a great image there of some of the storms moving through. But that's a look at the radar right now. We'll leave you with the radar loop going if you want to continue watching there. But we will be back on WCNC Plus if things change. And stay tuned for Colin Mayfield coming up shortly. He should be here any minute. really worried about what's going to happen tomorrow because tonight, in some cases, we got out of the woods pretty well, except for Lincolnton, to be honest. Lincolnton was the one area that was hit really, really hard. That's the one flash flood warning you still see in effect. We had a lot of flooding in downtown Lincolnton. Numerous roads were flooded out there. So this area is being saturated. We're seeing some new storms develop in and around here. And the reason I'm worried is because tomorrow, if this area gets hit again, it cannot handle much water. You could get half as much or a third of as much rain tomorrow in these same areas, and you'll see flash flooding. We have great example. We've got a blueprint for this, unfortunately, what's happening up in the Raleigh-Durham area, Chapel Hill, over to Burlington, and then
I sent you that email 15 minutes later. You're responding to me.
When a Charlotte woman battling cancer lost her health coverage, we demanded answers.
Within hours of WCNC Charlotte asking questions, the agency responsible quickly corrected its mistake.
Let us get to work for you.
Reach out to news tips at WCNC.com. WCNC Charlotte, news that impacts you.
Question everything and verify with WCNC Charlotte. Taking questions, seeking experts for the answers, and sharing the knowledge to distinguish fact from fiction. WCNC Charlotte is guiding the way. Well, summer camp may be top of mind for a lot of families this time of year, but it's important to make sure your kids have fuel to stay safe in the sun. So let's look at the everyday impact that a hydrating lunch can have on kids spending time outside.
As kids head to summer camps or spend time playing outdoors, remember to keep them hydrated. Doctors recommend children need anywhere from 4 to 6 cups of water a day, depending on their activity level. Kelly Holmesley with Novant Bariatric Solutions says if getting your kids to drink enough water is hard, find engaging ways to encourage them.
With my son, like getting him to drink water throughout the day can be really challenging, especially if they're at camp and you're not there with them to remind them constantly. So let them partake in picking a water bottle, for example. Something that small can help. So maybe it's their favorite color. Maybe they put superhero stickers or Disney princess stickers on there.
An easy way to add hydration is by adding snacks and lunches that contain tons of water, and giving kids a choice is crucial.
There's no sense in buying all of the produce, packing it in their lunch if they're not actually going to eat it. So start there. But for example, cucumber, celery, zucchini, peppers, lettuce, tomato, berries.
We are back on WCNC Plus. I'm Colin Mayfield alongside Jeb Goldman here for the next hour and a half or so until 9 o'clock on WCNC Plus. We're following a live Arkansas Legislative Council subcommittee meeting. There's an investigation into the prison escape of Grant Harden. This man is a former police chief who put on a homemade corrections uniform and then literally just walked right out of the prison. Folks are trying to figure out how. Oh, let's go to this now.
If the officer didn't open the gate, that he was going to attempt to climb the fence with the ladder.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Gilmore. And he's left. Representative Painter.
Just real quick, did he say, how many times did we know that he went back there? I mean, if he's doubling trash cans and putting the uniform back there, I mean, that takes, and building this stuff, it takes a little time. Couldn't have died it in one day.
No, sir, I agree. That was his work assignment. That was his actual job assignment, was to take care of that chemical cage. So he probably was back there most every day of the week.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So are inmates searched after they have their job assignments, after they carry out their tasks?
Yes, sir.
So that's policy. So that obviously wasn't happening either?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Senator Gilmore?
I'm back. Thank you. Sorry about that. Was he injured? Did he injure himself at any point? Are you aware of?
Not to my knowledge. I think the weather and the bugs and things like that got him, and because he thanked us for medical taking care of those bug bites and things.
Well, it's a good thing he wasn't over in the Delta, right, Senator Johnson? Talk about the warden for a second. How long have you been director? Remind me.
Since July of 2019, so 6 years.
Okay. So were you aware that he had been fired previously?
Yes, sir.
And you're aware of the circumstances of why?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think we already established there's one other warden, right? Is it common that we rehire people once they're terminated?
Yes, sir. It just depends on the reason for them being terminated. Yes, sir.
Okay. So there was no issues, and I don't know all the circumstances. I know some of it, but there's no issues in your mind that prevented him from doing his job, his duty, any issues like that?
No, sir.
Okay. Final question, and then I'll yield. When were victims notified? Victims of Mr. Harden or inmate Harden? When were criminal Harden? when were they notified?
I don't know. I don't know the exact time.
But they would have been at some point per protocol.
Yes, sir.
So you're fairly certain that happened.
Yes, sir. The victim, as long as we had the victim information, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I realize you all were sequestered on previous testimony, and I had to step out when you first sat down. I asked the question of the warden how many inmates at that level, C3, C4 level, were serving what in essence was a life sentence, even though he had a 30-year and a 50-year half time. It's 40 years for a 50-plus-year-old inmate. It was ultimately going to probably be a life sentence minus some good time. And I guess my question is, as we move forward, look at policy, having an inmate that is a C3 or C4, that is a long-term resident of that facility, at what point do we look at it and say this is too high of a risk? Even though we are a maximum level prison, because we can take these type of inmates, we're housing them where low-level offenders are as well, and we've got a supermax and a max down there that has like-minded individuals that rape and murder and are we don't want back in society and won't come back to society. We made the early on decision to put him in his parent unit. Then he had subsequent charges that increased, how long he was going to stay, and no changes were made. I made the assumption that it was because he was a former law enforcement officer, and if you put him in Cummins and Varner, he probably wasn't going to survive. You'd have to put him in an 8x8 box. His family of the victims think that's where he should have been all along, and some of them assume that's where he was all along. So they were surprised to hear that he was, serving in a kitchen along with low-level offenders, not getting the full experience of what he likely should have deserved. So moving forward, my question is, policy-wise, are we looking at actually putting those level of offenders in the situation which they got themselves in and deserve, instead of having them scattered at different facilities that do not have the million volts running around it with, Constantine wire across it.
Yes, sir. We definitely will be reviewing that. Unfortunately, hey, if I had more cells, I could put more people, in those situations in the C5 facilities. But yes, sir, we'll definitely be looking at moving people around. We've already started looking at that North Central list already.
Okay. So do you know if there's any of those level offenders in Calico currently, or was inmate Hardin the only one that really rose to that level?
Yes, sir. There are others.
And I don't mean C4, but I mean like maximum. Ultimately, what accounts to a life sentence. There's no reason for them to try to be on good behavior and stay, because they're never going to leave the facility, even with parole eligibility. Are any of those level offenders at Calico, or do we have them at Varner?
Yes, sir. There are some other inmates that may have the same charge that inmate Hardin had. Yes, sir.
That may never get out. Or they serve in 30 years and they're C4, but they'll be eligible for parole in 15, so it makes maybe a little more sense.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to make sure we're reviewing an inmate with the mindset of I'm never leaving, so I am going to occupy 100% of my time with how do I escape a medium maximum, but really a medium minimum facility, because that's where they're housed.
Yes, sir. We're definitely reviewing them. We've already started reviewing those to place them somewhere else. Unfortunately, Varner has a capacity. They have a limit also. So, and we've getting a lot of inmates in now with longer sentences for violent crimes. So, space is an issue for sure. Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today, for waiting, and for sharing your knowledge with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the
Appreciate your
opportunity.
time.
Yes, sir.
Colonel Hager, want to get out of here? Conway's calling you?
It never stops.
Well, if now's not a good time, if you'd introduce yourself for the record, and then you're welcome to make a statement or open it up for questions. That'll be up to you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairs, committee members, Secretary Mike Hager, Department of Public Safety, and I'm also Director of State Police. And I'll just make myself available for questions.
Okay, members, we've got Senator Blake Johnson.
Thank you, Secretary. So, is it called a commander over like Troop A, Troop, is that what you call them?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Have you got any of those commanders that were rehired after being fired as a trooper?
I'm fairly confident, no.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the previous testimony was state police was not active on early in the announcement, like local enforcement was, but state police was not. Do you have any recollection on where you would fall on the priority list if one of these incidents occurs, as far as for your own policy manual, where you would prefer to be at?
Right. We would prefer to be notified immediately. Yes, sir.
And your state police is keeper of the AWINS system, correct?
Adam. Yes, sir.
Adam is keeper of the AWINS, but yes. State police have primary control over its permissions? Or
I
Adam?
think that technically Adam.
Okay. Do you know if the Department of Corrections utilizes that system at all?
Honestly, off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay. I guess my thinking is that something that maybe future conversations will have, that somebody has the ability to utilize AWINS. I'm just curious if AWINS was utilized prior to the state police coming on board, where state police received that information over the airwaves versus being notified through the proper channels.
Right. If they are a customer of AWIN and they are operating on that system, we probably still would not have known that, because there's several AWIN customers that are all operating on different channels. So we'd still be relying on them to notify us either by phone, email, terminal message, something like that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll ask the Department of Corrections if they utilize AWINs.
Colonel Hager, are the state police doing an investigation to the events at North
Yes, sir,
Central?
we are.
Okay, do you know when that report will be released?
I just spoke with Major Rhodes before the meeting started, and this is a rough estimate. She thinks conservatively 30 days. It's possible that it will be sooner than that. Investigations tend to grow as you do interviews. That spawns another interview and another interview.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have to follow up based on information that you've received and do a follow-up interview of one you've already done. So it's hard to say for sure, but
when it's ready, will you please provide that to the committee?
Yes,
You'll
sir.
send it to Colby. He'll get it to us.
Yes, sir.
Representative Painter? Oh, he's out. Are you out? You are.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Colonel Hager, being here. Right here.
I'm sorry.
There's a substation of state police outside the prison, correct?
Yes, sir. Troop I is located in Harrison.
So what is that used for?
It's just the headquarters for the Troop I Highway Patrol personnel, and also the company special agents have an office there as well.
Would that be utilized if you guys were notified quick to operate out of? Or where would you guys operate when you guys got on the scene?
Well, it's a communications hub for Troop I, so that notification would go to dispatch center at Troop I, and then they would make the appropriate notifications to the Highway Patrol personnel.
Last question, how long did it take for you guys to get notified?
That's part of the investigation that we're doing, and there is a timeline on that, but I don't know that answer off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Colonel Hager,
Yes, sir.
you arrived on site. At what time did you arrive at Calico?
I actually did not go to Calico until the Wednesday following the escape.
So on the Wednesday when you arrived, and just based on your observation, I know you've got an investigation going on, but your time there and your personal observation, are there any insights that you would like to share with the committee of who was in control and in command in that command center? Or would you rather wait until the report comes out?
That's going to be a focus of the report, is that coordination. So yes, sir, if you wouldn't mind, I'd rather wait until.
That's fair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My bad, I didn't know the chair had left. Senator Gilmore, your 10 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll take it easy on the good colonel. He has been sitting out here a while, and he has an investigation that's ongoing, so I won't put him on the spot in that regard. But you do have an investigation ongoing.
Yes, sir.
We've heard the timeline of the investigation. Can you give us the scope of the investigation?
Yes, sir. We are looking to see if any laws were broken, first and foremost, if there were any policies violated, and if there were any procedures that were violated.
Okay. I know I can speak for
I want to make sure we're watching a couple of different incidents or situations, I should say, on this Thursday evening as we listen in on this Arkansas investigation. Still tracking those local storms. As you can see, our meteorologists still here at WCNC making sure that folks know exactly what's coming tonight. So we'll continue to check in with our team of meteorologists if we need to in terms of severe thunderstorms that may pop up anywhere across our area. We've been dealing with a live situation about or surrounding ICE enforcement agents in Southern California. Earlier today, we had heard about federal agents being on a tomato farm in Camarillo, California. We're seeing potential ICE activity now in Oxnard, California as well, which, Jeb, how far would you say that you're a California guy? How far?
Close.
Pretty
yeah,
close.
It's all in that same area.
Okay. So this situation has been ongoing since the early hours of the afternoon. In fact, Jeb and I were here at 3 o'clock, and this situation seemed to be developing at that time. So we were told that federal agents gathered Thursday at a farm field in rural Ventura County, and ICE operations, they continued in Southern California. There was a crowd that assembled in protest, and I think this is part of that protest scene, as you're seeing witnesses saying that several people were detained from this. And so some individuals are in custody. They were placed on a U.S. Marshals bus that left in a convoy of different vehicles. So people are protesting these operations at this moment. We'll continue to monitor all of the things happening, both local and regional, even national as well, and pass along anything, any updates that come across our air here on WCNC Plus.
My understanding is they have a Department of Corrections Academy and an ACC Academy, and it is a different level of training. Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess I look at it like we can fund prisons and we can fund law enforcement, but we put law enforcement in with the prisons, then, that budget gets shrunk to put the bars on the doors versus putting boots on the ground. If we got boots on the ground, fund them and have them as a backup resource. So
yes, sir.
As those conversations go on, I'd appreciate input. Thanks.
Representative Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've discussed this, and you've been in the room with some of the previous witnesses, and I was just curious if you could speak to it from state police perspective. What was the delay time in communication from when other agencies were notified to when state police was notified?
Yes, sir. Again, that's part of the investigation that there is a very specific focus on the timeline, but I don't have that available right now, but there is a very specific timeline that's being formatted.
So if you're able to, if you have the latitude to, there was a delay. Yes, that's correct. Okay. And I guess there's a scope of the investigation that you're not able to discuss at this time. Is there anything that you can discuss that state police might have been able to implement or act on quicker had they been notified at the appropriate time? Is there anything that you can share at this time?
Honestly, I've been briefed along the way with the investigation, but for the integrity of the investigation, I'd rather not, just because, again, with the interviews that are taking place that do kind of span out into follow-up interviews, sometimes that information changes. I don't want to do anything to harm the integrity of the investigation right now, knowing that this is public, so I would rather not.
Suffice to say, there was a breakdown in communication.
At first glance, it would appear that way, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Colonel, we appreciate you coming and sitting through the testimony. It's been kind of late, and we appreciate your honesty in the job that you do for the state.
Yeah.
If you have no other comments, we'll let you leave and take that nice leisurely ride home. And we're going to call Secretary Wallace.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, seems like things are wrapping up here in this investigation in Arkansas in relation to a prison escape of a former police chief who put on a homemade corrections uniform and walked right out of the jail. We'll continue to follow this situation in Oxnard, California. Some ICE operations and all met with protests. It seems we're getting a better perspective from the air, as you can see from the bottom right of your screen. So some interesting ICE activity that's been going on, as we said, from the early hours. And then also, obviously Brittany Van Voorhees and Brad Panovich tracking local storms at this hour. The State Department had a very interesting briefing today with Tammy Bruce. So we'll go to that as we watch these other situations.
That was pretty outrageous, but glad we made it. Thank you all very much for being here. Popular today in the back. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone at home. So yes, we have a few announcements, as you might imagine, and then I'll be ready to take your questions. So good afternoon, everyone. Secretary Rubio is in Kuala Lumpur for the ASEAN-related foreign ministers' meetings and bilateral engagements, reaffirming the United States' commitment, our enduring commitment, if I may add, to a free, open, and secure Indo-Pacific. Earlier today, he participated in the ASEAN-U.S. Post-Ministerial Conference and held meetings with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar and counterparts from Malaysia, Russia, Japan, and the Philippines. As the Secretary has stated, the Indo-Pacific accounts for 2/3 of global growth and remains a central focus of U.S. foreign policy. The Secretary also signed a nuclear cooperation memorandum of understanding with Malaysia, advancing civil nuclear energy collaboration under the highest standards of safety, security, and non-proliferation. Negotiations toward a 123 agreement are underway, and once finalized, it would permit the transfer of nuclear material and equipment for peaceful purposes, further deepening bilateral energy, security, and economic ties. Tomorrow also marks the 4th anniversary of the Cuban regime's July 11th crackdown. Deputy Secretary Landau met with Cuban democracy and human rights advocates, reaffirming the United States' steadfast support for freedom and democracy in Cuba. Secretary Rubio's video message to the group made clear the Trump administration promotes accountability for the Cuban regime's human rights violations and continues to stand with the Cuban people in their pursuit of freedom and prosperity. Additionally, the United States is imposing sanctions on UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese for her abuse of her role. And in recent weeks, she also targeted U.S. companies in an unacceptable campaign of political and economic warfare. The United States will take whatever actions we deem necessary and appropriate to protect our sovereignty, Israel, and any other U.S. ally from illegitimate actions by the ICC. In parallel, the department is announcing a new awareness campaign warning Americans, especially Iranian Americans, about the continuing severe risks of travel to Iran. The Iranian regime does not recognize dual nationality and routinely denies consular services to detained U.S. citizens. And while the bombing has stopped, that does not mean that it is safe to travel to Iran. It is not. We are also launching a new website dedicated to warning Americans against travel to Iran. And there you have it. You can get that website starting at state.gov/do not travel to Iran. That's do-not-travel-to-Iran. But I think if you go to state.gov, you do a search, you will find that quite easily. The message is clear, as you can tell, in multiple languages. Our travel advisories are there as well. They remain in place. And we cannot stress enough, as we continue to do, as I have multiple times from this podium, do not travel to Iran, especially those of you who are the dual citizens, who have Iranian heritage. It is not safe for anyone to travel to Iran. And again, this supplements also the existing travel advisories. It does not supplant them at travel.state.gov. Our message is clear. I think so. And finally, as many of you would know, the department is also undertaking a historic reorganization, as announced by Secretary Rubio on April 22nd, to better align workforce activities and programs foreign policy priorities. The Supreme Court's recent near-unanimous decision allows the reorganization to commence and will ensure that the department moves at the speed of relevancy and restores the department to its roots of results-driven democracy. The plan, which has been approved by the Secretary and developed with extensive feedback from Congress and the workforce itself, is moving into implementation. I do also want to make a note here, as my experience at the State Department now moves into its 6th month, the remarkable experience, the life-changing experience I've had getting to know the people who work in this building. There are tens of thousands of them, and they are at the heart, whether they be political appointees, foreign service officers, or career individuals, people who have made their career, their service for this country, something that has been a part of their lives for a long time. It has been a remarkable experience to see how this building works, how the people work together moving forward to promote and to implement American foreign policy through the commitment and their patriotism. I have to say that in the midst of all of this, it's been, again, very transparent. I've been proud of that coming from the leadership of this building, as we've discussed this many times. And now this is the point where it begins. And all of us understand, and it's sometimes difficult, as any enterprise in America has learned, that when change is necessary. But in this case, we've inherited a dynamic that needed reform, and we are taking and implementing reform. And of course, in the midst of this, know that the people who've committed to the State Department and to diplomacy, that they know also this is not about them. This is about making sure that the State Department is able to operate in a manner that makes it relevant and effective. That is what the American people want. It's what all of us want. And in this dynamic, that's exactly what we're achieving. So it is, it's been a long road. Every day is one that I'm very proud of working here. And of course, every briefing I'm proud of. It's always very different, the briefings. But we will start now with today's briefing as I take your questions. All right. Andrea Mitchell. Yes, ma'am.
Well, before I ask you about Ukraine and the possibility of sanctions and strong support from this department for sanctions, given what the president said about his impatience with Vladimir Putin after the secretary's conversations with Sergei Lavrov.
Yes.
Let me just say that for the workforce, for those who are going to be leaving, foreign service as well as civil service, many of whom I and my colleagues have worked with for many, many years, if not decades, to be told that, as you just said, you're going to make it relevant and effective. You're basically saying that they are not relevant or effective.
Well, I'm glad you
thousands of
bring that up, because I think
jobs.
that is, Andrea, it's the antithesis of what I've said. That this is not a matter of the individual being targeted or an individual not being right. This is about being able to be effective due to the size of the organization and to the structure of the organization. This involves, as you all receive material and a new org chart and all these other kinds of wonky things, that this is about an entity that has grown unsustainable over the years with elements related to the Cold War and other elements that we have moved beyond but still stayed. An aspect that you have a size and people working on things that are not within the framework of the modern age or of what we want to accomplish, and certainly the decision that the American people made last year, that Donald Trump's vision about what the world should be in the context of how America can be great again and what we can contribute as Americans, that when something is too large to operate, too bureaucratic to actually function and to deliver projects or action, it has to change. And it's not the fault of the people who were misled effectively by certain administrations that grew this department into being irrelevant. We must be able to contribute to a world that we've seen in the modern age can destroy everyone's lives. Our department, the State Department, can make the difference with diplomacy, and Donald Trump is the highlight of that. So I will repeat, as I said, this is not a statement about the individuals who are affected in this building. It is a statement about a structure that needs to adapt, that must be smaller in order for us to be relevant, but even more than relevant, effective, quick. We've seen, even just in these past 5 months, how quickly things can change and what can happen when you move at the speed of relevancy. So no, I would, and it's unfortunate, Andrea, that you would take that point and move that point, because nothing could be further from the truth. And it's exciting for the people who are here and the people who've committed their years to the State Department to be able to watch it become even more powerful through diplomacy and making the world safer again and better again and healthier again. They can be proud of that because they've contributed to that, and we're determined to make sure we continue it as well. All right.
Well,
yeah. Well,
am I able to ask
you have a question about? Yes.
I have
go
a
ahead.
question about the importance of sanctions right now at this pivotal moment for Ukraine, given the president's stated impatience with what he saw as misleading understandings,
of course,
from the Russian president.
Well, the Secretary made some comments earlier today in Malaysia, and in part he said, our strategy is to continue to engage all the parties that are involved in finding an outcome to this conflict. I echoed to Lavrov what the President said, both the disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress in peace talks or in a path forward. We hope that that can change, and we're going to stay involved where we see opportunities to make a difference. He also said that the Russians shared some ideas that he said he would take back to the President, and of course we will see what he says. The President is the guiding hand of these kinds of decisions. And other than that, of course, this is a meeting involved with diplomatic discussions, which I will not get into the details with. All right, Humaira.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you.
Sure.
Just to quickly go back to the reorganization, you said it's moving into the implementation phase. Can you say when the first RIF notices will go out? Is it tomorrow? And apparently the judge wanted to see the RIF plans. That was a demand from the court yesterday. Is that going to slow down the sending of the RIF notices?
First, of course, I won't comment on anything that's moving through the legal system or the requests of the legal system. And also, I will not, other than saying that the Supreme Court decision has allowed us to commence. And that's what we're doing. But I think it's fair to say that with everything else that happens here, it will happen quickly. This is not going to be an extended wait for people who are listening and watching in this building or fellow Americans at home and around the world. This will happen quickly. We understand that there has been a delay, not to our interests, but because of the courts. It's been difficult when you know you need to get something done for the benefit of everyone. So it will be quickly. I cannot give you the timing, and again, won't discuss any legal aspects that may have arisen as well.
Okay, two quick things.
Yes,
one
ma'am.
is on Russia, and the other one is about Steve Witkoff. Follow up to Andrea's question. Are you able to tell us at all about this? What's new about these ideas or comments that is going to open a path for peace, which the administration has been trying to do?
Well, what the Secretary said was that he would bring the new ideas to the President. We didn't say that they were going to open a path for peace. So don't read into the nature.
Isn't that what you guys are trying to do?
And that is in the process of the diplomacy that the Secretary undertakes, that he's in a conversation with Lavrov as an example, conversations the President would have with Zelensky, the President of Ukraine as an example. These are things that are important to realize. They're not static events that stand on their own. They are part of a fluid dynamic of conversations and negotiations. We are, as the President has said and the Secretary has said and engaged in, we'll speak with everyone, because every step makes a difference in the decision that you have to make in the end, and that's where we're at.
The final thing is an Israeli airstrike hit Palestinians near a medical center in Gaza today. It killed 10 children and 6 adults. I'm wondering if there's been any outreach from the U.S. government to the Israeli authorities to take any steps to ensure civilians aren't killed in this.
Well, I can't speak to that particular event. I would direct you to the country of Israel for answers in that regard. But we have said repeatedly that we decry the death of innocents. It's why we do what we do in so many countries around the world. It's part of what informs our action. And at the same time, we know that it's a war, and we stand by Israel, to say the least. And we also know that Israel, when it is due, investigates, and we will wait to see what their action will be, and we'll keep you up to date, obviously. Yes, Jen.
Can I follow up on that, Tammy?
Sure.
There used to be mechanisms in this building to look into incidents of civilian harm using U.S. weapons. Do those mechanisms still exist, and have you come to any conclusions with regard to Gaza?
Well, I can tell you again that the choices that we're going to make diplomatically in reaction to another country's actions or the nature of what's happening around the world, I won't discuss at this podium, or what our process is. But I can tell you that what I've experienced, and I think what all of you have seen over the years, is that we have mechanisms like that because we care about those issues. We have a constant communication with our allies around the world, and that is also something that we see benefiting the agenda of the President and the work of the Secretary of State. So clearly, we care about these issues. We're acting on them actively every day, and that will be one, obviously. I can update you on that, I'm sure, as we move forward.
And then quickly on GHF, my colleagues and I reported that there were a number of internal concerns about funding GHF that were raised prior to the approval. Can you say whether the Secretary was aware of those concerns and why that approval was granted despite these? That'd be of
Yeah, I know
concern.
we've had that conversation before. First of all, I can give you an update. There's now 69 million meals that have been distributed to date at 4 distribution centers, all while preventing Hamas looting, which is, of course, an incredible feat. It should be commended and supported. I think most of us do. We also call on other aid agencies and the UN to participate in this system. It has been implemented and it works. And of course, this is part of the creative solutions that the President has asked for regarding that region. When it comes to the activity that is happening or allegations that are made or the framework of what we're trying to achieve, I think that we're looking at a dynamic where it is a war zone. It's the same issues that we've been discussing about the task of getting humanitarian aid to people who need it. The world has clamored for this, and it's happening. And I think at this point, when we look at the nature of the number of meals that have been delivered and the efforts that have to be taken to save those lives, it is to be commended. It's not, certainly nothing will be perfect. I've said this before, that it can't be perfect because it is an unnatural, obscene environment. And for people looking for perfection in a war zone like that, being terrorized by terrorists, to demand perfection or a new normal of this environment is unacceptable. Nothing will be enough. And so that's why we've got to have a solution and an end, a durable ceasefire and a durable peace, because otherwise the suffering and the carnage continues, and that's what we're working to end. All right. Yes, Alex.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I want to go back to Ukraine, press you a little bit more, if I may. You said the Secretary will inform the President about the new ideas. At what point do you guys are planning to inform the Ukrainians?
I'm sorry, what are we?
The Ukrainians, I mean, they are in the talk. So are you going
Oh, well, obviously, I'm not going to speak about every conversation or connection we have with partners that we're working with every day, all the time. The communications don't just happen when you hear about it in the news or if there's one phone call that's talked about. These are, in every region that is required, special envoys and discussions and help regarding ceasefires, or at least finding where you can find some common ground, is a 24/7 operation with innumerable people working on it. So when it comes to the Ukrainians, our friends, President Zelensky had a fabulous phone call with President Trump. That was discussed somewhat publicly. Certainly when it comes to the issue of armaments and defensive weapons, essentially, that was discussed publicly, and of course we have news in that regard. So you might not hear it in the news. It doesn't mean that we're not talking quite often, if not all the time, with our Ukrainian friends.
Thank you. And going back to Andrea's point earlier, we all heard just 2 days ago from the President that he expressed his frustration of Putin, saying that he was lying to him. And then we also have seen past few days, Russians have been engaging in record-breaking attacks, Kiev or other cities. Why do you think Lavrov deserves a secretary-level meeting, given all this background?
Well, again, a lot of people didn't think Putin should be talked with at all during the last administration. He wasn't talked to for 3 years. That's not a way that you can come to some kind of understanding or agreement or an effort to stop any carnage and the suffering. You've got to talk to everyone at any point when it comes to those who are involved in the situation. To say nothing of the leverage that we have with the ideas and the power of President Trump, and clearly the effectiveness of Secretary Rubio in the midst of this. At the same time, the escalating Russian attacks, the President's been clear, they're abhorrent. I can say to you here that we strongly condemn Russia's escalating attacks on Ukraine and extend our deepest condolences to the victims and families of those killed. Every week we see reports of Russia setting new records for the scale of its aerial attacks. Every nation wants to have records, but not that kind. As Secretary Rubio said today, we've seen an acceleration of attacks. President Trump's #1 interest is to stop people from dying and the destruction that's going every single day. He is going to do everything he can within his power to end this war and any other war he has a chance to end. We're going to continue to work at it. We understand that these things take time and patience, but obviously we are also frustrated that more progress has not been made. And I, again, would remind you that that's an opinion regarding the state of situation now in the midst of ongoing conversations that are conveyed publicly. And while I won't speak or characterize the Secretary's conversations with Lavrov or any other person, it's clear that this is part of that movement toward making decisions about what is necessary to stop this madness. All right. Yes, Tom.
Is there any update on Steve Witkoff's travel? He'd said in the cabinet meeting earlier this week, I think by the end of the week, he expects to go to Doha. So can you confirm whether or not that's happening? And just on the on what the president was saying last week, which was with quite a lot of certainty expecting a deal this week, what we should sort of read into the raising of expectations. Do you think that it's that close that now there will be a breakthrough by next week, for example?
Well, on your question about Special Envoy Witkoff, the answer is no. I know, it's a very short word with two letters. I think it's the same in 7 languages. Yeah, well, I have no update for you on his travel.
But he might be traveling, but you don't have an update.
My comment, or lack thereof, is not a negative to your question that he's not traveling. The answer is that I don't have an update for you.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. Regarding, of course, the potential of a ceasefire, the President made clear that he was optimistic. And he's considering his lifelong experience, but certainly the experience over the last 5 months, and even certainly through his first term, with the Abraham Accords, et cetera, and the nature of what's been going on in the Middle East, all of us understand that this is a difficult process. So when you are getting close, when you know the nature of the monsters in this case that you're dealing with, you have a general sense, and especially with how the Middle East has changed dramatically because of the action of the United States a few weekends ago, that the playing field is different. So his optimism is based on the multitude of things that he knows that I don't, and I think that we should maintain the awareness of his opinion and the optimism that he has. He doesn't say it very often, so when he does, we need to take it seriously, but we do know that, of course, once again, this is an active zone, and we've got the best people working on it, and that's what we pledge to the United States.
Can I just come back with one other issue, which is about the town of Taipei in the West Bank, in which there are around 300 U.S. citizens, a Christian town. The priest there had said that it's come under sustained settler attack. There was an arson attack on one of the holy sites at the beginning of this week, and they feared that the church there could have caught fire. It was extinguished. Is there, and I have contacted the Jerusalem embassy, but has there been any outreach from the U.S. embassy to the town? Is there any support for the U.S. citizens there?
Well, I can't comment on the actions we've taken, even if they're phone calls. What I do want to note, of course, is the decrying we have made of civilians, innocent people being hurt in this process. We also, so obviously we're concerned when we hear about anyone being targeted, let alone Christians in this case, that the President has made it clear his feelings on that issue writ large. And it's difficult. All of this, it's war. It's war manifesting in very different contexts within that region, but also other places around the world. President Trump has long established, and I know Secretary Rubio concurs, that protecting Christians is a priority, as seen through his executive order against anti-Christian bias. We do condemn, so there's no confusion, criminal violence by any party in the West Bank and support actions to ensure all civilians, including Christian civilians, remain safe. In the meantime, though, also we would refer you to the government of Israel regarding security incidents and the IDF posture in the West Bank in this regard. All right. Yes.
Tammy, I'm just circling back to GHF. We do know that in this latest round of ceasefire negotiations, Hamas has been insisting that GHF end its operations.
Of course they are.
Do you see any scenario, of course, given that you're talking about how successful it is?
Hamas has been enriched by previous aid efforts by looting. They steal this material. They steal the trucks. They not only enrich themselves. You notice it's the highlight of the last generations that aid gets in there and is taken by the people, causing the destruction and the pain. They make money. They use those resources to build more weapons. They buy more weapons. They're certainly not stealing it to get it to the Gazan people faster. That's not why they're taking it. They're taking it for themselves, so they have obviously a few square meals every day. But there's money, and it makes there's many. It is an industrial complex, an aid industrial complex. But in that dynamic through a war zone, we've known that the enemy is the only one benefiting from that, and that's why this change. And of course, well, Hamas doesn't like it. Good. That's perhaps an indication that it has ruined that pipeline of money and support. You have people with the best of intentions of getting aid in, but when you see it's going to the people you're trying to stop, we have a duty to change the strategy, and that is what has occurred. So there is, of course, this obviously is working. It is important, as I noted before, for other aid organizations and other efforts. We now have a platform, if you will, at least a template of how to do this without enriching and facilitating the carnage itself.
So given your answer there, is it safe to say that the U.S. and Israel see it as imperative that GHF be allowed to continue operating in Gaza under the terms of any ceasefire agreement?
Well, I think that it's when you have the success, and I would say any entity that was able to break through that wall, that is able to get 69 million meals to the people in need, without the enemy looting it and taking it and benefiting, is a framework that must be supported. It doesn't mean that someone else also can't join in on the nature of this supplying. That's, I think, what the difference is. We've finally seen a new idea that works. So separate from the entity that's doing it, right now there's one, because everyone else said don't, or we don't support you, or you can't do it, or yes, we want aid to go in, but not by those guys. It is now undeniable. This is the format that works. And others, now it's an open dynamic of what it is that's making it work. Others should implement it. Others should come in. There is no excuse to stand on the sidelines either because of envy or because of a political consideration, because all of this transcends those things. It's about feeding people, feeding those children. And this is a dynamic, obviously, that works, and we hope will continue to work. Saeed.
Thank you, Tammy. Two quick things.
Yes, sir.
On Albanese,
yes.
On the timing of imposing these sanctions, does it have anything to do with her tweet the day before that basically, slamming Greece, France, and Italy for allowing Netanyahu's plane over their airspace when they are signatories to the Rome Protocol? I mean, she's talking about technical things. Did that have anything to do with it?
No, this has been, and it's a good question because it highlights that this is not an action based on one action or one thing. This has been a long-term issue. And what I will say to you is today, and just more details, the United States is imposing sanctions on UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese for her abuse of that role to directly engage in ICC actions against Israeli officials. In recent weeks, she has also targeted U.S. companies in an unacceptable campaign of political and economic warfare. As the President's Executive Order, EO 14203, makes clear, the ICC's actions set a dangerous precedent for lawfare that endangers our national security and foreign policy and infringes on the sovereignty of the United States. The President declared a national emergency under the EO that emphasizes, quote, the United States will impose tangible and significant consequences on those responsible ICC's transgressions, which would include blocking of property and visa restrictions. The United States will take whatever actions we deem necessary and appropriate to protect our sovereignty, to protect Israel, and any other U.S. ally from illegitimate actions by the ICC. That's why that occurred.
Okay, and one
Yes, sir.
quick follow-up on Tom's
Yes.
West Bank thing. Now, we have seen really, a spike in settler violence in the West Bank. And, whether it's in places like Masafer Yatta, where they basically, there was a big film about it and so on that won the Oscar and so on. But also in other places, in the Jordan Valley and so on. And my question, who is in the State Department following up on these incidents? I mean, how do people, including Palestinian Americans that live in my village, for instance, some of my relatives and so on, who do they go to when they say we have been subject of attack by settlers and so on?
Well, obviously, first of all, Israel, of course, it's the government of Israel who they go to. Israel is an ally. But when you say who in this building works on this, I'm going to answer that.
Yeah, okay.
This is, and I've said this before, a lot of people don't know how the State Department works. It's not a bunch of people in suites, typing things down. Some people are. I do that sometimes, but I don't have a suite. But it's thousands of people, you guys. It is thousands of people in bureaus that are assigned to regions who work literally, and they have, people assigned different times of the day and the night, who are working all the time looking at the nature of what's occurring all around the world based on where their region might be. And of course, this region, involving, of course, the Middle East, is very busy. I see them almost every day. And during the briefing days, we sit down and I get briefed by these people, these experts, who watch everything that's happening, who are talking to everyone, who know what's occurring, who know where the policy is moving, who know what the secretary is thinking, or at least what his trajectory might be. I then blend into that with what I know from leadership as I work in this building. So when we say, who cares? The American people care. The State Department cares as a collection of the American people who have committed to this work specifically, which is not easy and does not make anyone rich, because they care about the country and they care about what happens around the world in the relationship of making sure America stays safer, more secure, and more prosperous. That's who cares, and that's who's working on it. Yes, sir, right there behind. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Sammy. Just a follow-up on Saeed's question as well. Is the Office of the U.S. Security Coordinator in Jerusalem still working under General Michael Flynn, I believe? And because recently there were a few reports indicating that there was a visit to Noor Shams refugee camps.
Let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. This is moving into gossip and a report or reports of something. We can save everyone's time because we're moving out of my time. I will not comment on things that you've seen in a paper somewhere or reports of wanting gossip or my speculation. That won't happen. I will have it taken back, your question, in the event there's something we can get to you. But we're going to move on from that. Yes, sir, go ahead. No, we are going on. That was your chance, sir. No, sir, right there.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
On the optimism expressed by the administration on the potential ceasefire in Gaza, and particularly the distribution of humanitarian aid, are there plans in place to stop the firing on Palestinians trying to get that aid?
Well, if we've been demanding for a long time, there's one group there, it's just horrible, that will not stop shooting people or lay down their weapons. Hamas. They could lay down their weapons. There are fewer of them, we will have to admit, since the beginning of this war. And they also won't release the hostages. So part of the ceasefire plan, of course, you have a ceasefire when people stop shooting. So if we're looking at the nature of if there's a plan in that framework, and also, of course, what Secretary Rubio has noted, that there is no place in the future for Hamas. Hamas should not exist. It cannot exist. So in that context, yes, the firing on anyone who is attempting, who's an innocent civilian, who's attempting to get something or just living their lives, the Gazan people have been the first victims of this horror, as they have been controlled for generations by Hamas, by terrorists, by those who don't care about them. So the peace that President Trump wants and Secretary Rubio is working for aims, to say the least, of ending that across the board, no matter who might be doing it, but certainly those who are controlling that framework now and the ones with the weapons, and that would be Hamas. Yes, at the end of the row here.
Anthony Mershak from MTV Lebanon.
Right,
so
welcome aboard.
we're asking about
Thank you,
Beirut.
sir.
Could you please clarify the special envoy Tom Barak recent comment stating that Hezbollah has a political wing? Had the U.S. position changed regarding the distinction between Hezbollah's political and military branches?
I have a few things I can say to you. First of all, our position has not changed. Hezbollah is a designated terrorist organization, and we do not distinguish between its political or armed wings. As Ambassador Barak said while in Beirut, Lebanon must utilize this moment to make progress, and that includes progress on disarming Hezbollah. And at the same time, Ambassador Barak, he's the ambassador to Turkey, as well as, of course, our special envoy for Syria. I'm not going to characterize his diplomatic conversations in that regard at all, but he has said publicly that he has been very satisfied with the initial response by the Lebanese government, but now it's noted that they're working on details in this regard. And on the security front, the Lebanese armed forces have made progress on disarming Hezbollah in the south, but there is still more to be done. So as he said, Ambassador Barak, while in Beirut, Lebanon must utilize this moment to make progress. And we do not want to see Hezbollah or any other terrorist group in Lebanon recover their ability to commit violence and threaten the security in Lebanon or in Israel. And I will take one more. You, sir, in the white shirt. Thank you.
Shadow journalist from Azerbaijan, and recently Secretary Rubio said he hopes to see a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan soon. And today, Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan met in Abu Dhabi. Is there any connection between Secretary Rubio's remarks and this meeting, and does Washington currently have a concrete plan or proposal to support a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan? And my second question is...
Let me answer that, because, get me while it's right here on the front, and I will take your second question, and then that's likely going to be it, because we have a thing. First, regarding the peace process, the United States supports those efforts to promote peace and stability in the South Caucasus. We also are tracking the referenced press reports in general and don't have any additional information to share. But as you know also, I think the Trump administration and Secretary Rubio's approach speaks for itself. And his remarks at the cabinet meeting is that this is an administration working for peace. They will do and go wherever they need to go. It is not waned. It is because it is the core of the commitment to making America great again is improving, of course, the condition of the world around us. And your second question, sir.
My second question is, for several months now, there has been no U.S. ambassador appointed to Azerbaijan. Could you please clarify if this delay is due to procedural and technical reasons, or if there are any political consideration behind it, and how does the U.S. government view the importance of having a full ambassadorial presence in Baku at this time?
Very, very good question. I don't have the answer to that right now, but we will take it back and get it back to you in the full context in which you answered it. All right, you guys, that's it right now. Thank you very much. I will see you again next week, but there will be, of course, updates on everything we're working on throughout today and tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.
We're going to go back to the Legislative Council subcommittee meeting in Arkansas on that investigation surrounding the prison escapee of that former police chief who walked really right out of prison with homemade corrections uniform on. So we'll go to this as it is still ongoing at this hour.
Not supposed to do. Here's what we need to do to try to pull them up and fix whatever behavior it is. So that's an ongoing thing, and that's something that we started doing I don't know how, a year maybe ago, when I really started reviewing those files. But yes, those are the training opportunities that they have. And anything that the wardens see or that Director Payne sees, we have a trying to remember what the training is that's scheduled to, we've got several folks coming in. I think it's a restrictive housing training. We're bringing folks in from out of state to conduct training on managing restrictive housing environments. So anytime that as we're attending conferences and talking through things that we learn from other states, we'll bring those things back to the department as well.
Okay, so as we go forward and we look and get all the departments in the same room to kind of
Yes, sir.
dissect the events, would Department of Corrections would they be looking towards a potential path towards DPS or Adam taking over a situation after a certain time point rather than keeping control? Just really, in my mind, just based on the resource availability. Secretary Hager, having Troop I believe there in Harrison, and having the resources out of not only DPS and Adam and the state police office, whereas the Department of Corrections is kind of isolated in y'all's own facilities.
Sure. Well, and I think typically that's the trajectory of what these investigations would take. But I think this got a little hairy because it lasted so long right at the department. They couldn't really place him off of department property or whatever it was that led to this. And I don't want to go too far into the weeds. I know there's still ongoing investigations, but I think that's where it got a little bit difficult to determine if there was a point in time with which you should turn it over. When we've had incidents in the past, I think it was a pretty clear trajectory off of department property where your jurisdiction would change hands, but I'm not certain that the lines were that clear in this circumstance.
Okay. Well, from all accounts from the testimony, he's got caught.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think everybody played well in the sandbox together and had a single mission. It'd be good to see what comes of the clarity if it happens again. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate you sticking around and talking to us. Call the next one up and Dr. Byers. Dr. Byers, thank you so much for sticking around to visit with us. If you'd introduce yourself for the record, and if you're welcome to make an opening statement or talk about whatever you want, and then we'll open the floor for questions.
William Dubs Byers, member of the Board of Correction. I don't have an opening statement. If you'll just, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, we've had significant testimony today, and so we'll go straight to Senator Bryant.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Byers, how much time do you have?
And he appointed me the last year he was in office. So
okay. So you'll next to Mr. Magnus, you're probably the ranking member.
Probably.
We did have a lot of good testimony. We had a lot of things that are going to get found in reports and investigations completed and suggestions sent, and they'll likely come to the board for adoption. Board being more of a part-time role, just like us. I'm just curious from your opinion, from the things you've heard and seen, these suggestions and the routes and the potential changes that might come down from the suggestion.
Absolutely. It's whatever. And I think the board is open to that, and certainly we'll look at it and we'll take whatever precautions we need to make sure that we'd like to think this won't ever happen again, but you know, things like this have happened traditionally, and they tend to happen from time to time.
Sure. Did you ever go up to Calico during?
I have. It's been a good. Well, I didn't go up there during the escape. I'm pretty familiar. I worked with the department for 39 years, so I spent quite a bit of time up there when I worked for the department.
Okay. And last question: is there anything that you witnessed or saw during during the 12 days that brought concern or pause that you would like to have the committee address?
No, not that I'm aware of. I know that a lot of people put in a lot of time and work very hard on that, and I appreciate all of them. I appreciate our employees and also all the other law enforcement agencies, the federal and state and local, who helped. I think it was a team effort, and I appreciate that. But no, of course, I, like everybody else, have some preliminary information about the investigation. Of course, it's still going on. A lot of it's still going on.